Right. This is the part 3 for chapter 1, class 8 science. We are talking about the crop management, and we have so far discussed about the preparation of the soil, how to go about with the sowing process, adding nutrients in the form of manures and fertilizer, giving water to the plants, various irrigation methods, and now we are into the process of eliminating weeds. Now, what is a weed? A weed is going to be the unwanted plants that grow simultaneously with the good crops that we are actually willing to grow. Now, these weeds can be poisonous. These weeds are competing with the plant that we are growing in the form of taking away the nutrients, the water, the sunlight. And if they are cultivated along with the plants that we want to grow, they can get mixed up when the harvesting is happening. If they are inedible or they are poisonous, like some fungal plants, etc., that could be very disastrous. So obviously, the most important reason why we want to get rid of them is because of preventing this competition from happening in the field. So what options do the farmers have to get rid of these weeds or these unwanted plants? One simple way is to actually use a chemical which would allow the normal plants to grow, but it would be not letting the weeds to grow. So they are called the weedicides. Now they are again chemicals. We have to ensure that the farmers, when they are doing it, they are wearing the personal protective equipment. They are wearing gloves. They are having face covered with a cloth. When is this weedicide going to be effective? It is going to be effective before the weeds actually start to flower. Because once they start to flower, then you already have got the seeds in there for this weed to propagate further. So the ideal time for this weedicide is before the flowering and seeding of the weeds happen. Okay. The other obvious way in which you can remove a weed is by manually going about in the field and then taking the weed out. You can, the farmer can use various instruments for the same. They can use a simple khurpi, if you were to say, which is just a metallic plate like thing which they can use and chop this plant away and or pull this out of the ground. So there are two essential methods. One is the manual. The other one is going to be using the weedicides. Again, why was it important? Because it was essentially a competition with the plant that we are growing, so we need to eliminate them. Now you have grown the plant, the weeds have been eliminated. With respect to weedicide, one important thing is that because it's a chemical, with the rainfall it can get washed away into the nearby water body. Similar to the fertilizer, it can lead to water pollution, and that is why we want to do this naturally. Okay, so either the farmer does it, or sometimes there are other plants that are grown along with the normal plants which prevent the cultivation of this weed. The other important other way in which this weedicide or the elimination of the weeds in fact can happen is that before the start of cultivation itself, the farmers sometime what they do is that they clear the field by burning the field, which would get rid of all the remaining plant products in the soil per se, and that would prevent the weeds from growing up. We will talk about that in a minute. Going to harvesting. Now the plants are all ready. 3 to 4 months have gone by. You have taken good care of the plants, and they are now into mature crops. It's time for the harvest. There are various festivals that are actually celebrated around the time of harvest, like Baisakhi, it could be Onam, Holi. These are the various festivals that are specially designed to celebrate the harvest. Now, once the harvest is happening, I mean, harvesting can be done in two ways. One is manual by using a sickle. Okay, so this is the sickle, and essentially the crops are being cut by it, but manually. The other way is to do it with the help of a harvester, which is again a mechanized form of cutting the crops away. They could be either pulled directly from the ground or just the shoot part, which is up above the ground, is cut away. Now, with the harvester, the pulling cannot happen. It would be that the plant is cut up from the surface area. Why is that important? Because that still leaves the roots behind. And when the farmer now has to again grow another crop, then it has to get rid of this plant product. That is again when the clearing of the field comes in. Now, what some farmers do is that they burn the field after the harvest has happened. This is called prescribed burning, because this burning is being done by the farmer in a controlled way. They have to ensure that the area surrounding their field has been watered so as to not let the fire propagate into others' field. They have to ensure that they have kind of a tunnel sort of a thing created, or a ditch kind of a thing created around their field. They have to ensure that when this burning is happening, then the weather conditions are optimum. I mean, if the wind is blowing in high velocity, I mean, obviously it will just spread the whole fire. Now, in the recent years, this obviously has been discouraged, because this is not a form of sustainable agriculture. Why do we say so? Because obviously it is leading to pollution in the first place. Secondly, the nutrients that are captured by the plant are being lost away by being burned. Why is it still done? First and foremost, obviously, to clear away the field. The other thing is that the companies who sell fertilizers, they obviously encourage that the field should be as clean as possible for the fertilizers to work. But now there is obviously the pros and cons that are being looked into as to how good this practice of burning the field is. I would not be able to tell you exactly whether this is the best process or not, but then that's what is currently being followed up. And with new forms and new, you can say, technology coming in, there is obviously going to be a tilt more towards sustainable agriculture and decision not to do this. So the other thing that you need to know about is what is, I'll rub this away, just one second. What is winnowing and what is threshing? So the plant that you have obtained after the harvest is going to have the edible grain part, and then it has a surrounding inedible part. So this is the inedible coat, and this is the grain that you are actually interested in. So there has to be a process to separate this chaff, as it is called. Now with the harvester, this process can happen simultaneously as the plant is being cut. Okay. So the process by which the harvested crop, in a harvested crop, we separate the grain from the chaff is called as threshing. Once you have started the process of threshing, still the chaff and the grain are in the same heap, if you were to say. So it has not fully been separated. To fully separate the two, the process is going to be called as winnowing. I'll clarify these terms again. Separation, or the initial step of separation of chaff from the grain is the edible part that we are interested in, is called the threshing. And when the chaff is fully removed from the grain, it is called as winnowing. Okay. Now, how does the winnowing happen? Winnowing is going to be done by either a natural process of utilizing the wind energy, or artificially by recreating the air current, that is basically using a fan. How does this happen? Is that you might have had seen ladies having this kind of a cane like thing on which the grain is there, and they throw it from a height. As the grain is falling, because it is heavy, it is going to fall straight to the ground, but the light shaft part, now imagine that the wind is blowing from here, the shaft part is going to go and fall separately in a different heap. So you have separated the shaft from the grain by just like throwing it from the top. Obviously, if there is no air current or wind that is strong enough, then there has to be a mechanical way to do it, right? So let's make a diagram of how this whole thing works. So this is the fan, okay, that's running inside this, and this is a funnel in which we are going to feed the grain plus the chaff. Okay, now as the air is blowing here, the light chaff part is going to be blown away, right, and it is going to be collected here, and the solid part, which is going to be the grain, is now going to fall down, and it is going to be collected here. Now this is all enclosed in a machine where this fan is, and that's how this whole process of winnowing is happening. Okay. Now that we have understood the words threshing as well as winnowing, we move over to storage of this grain. Now you have got the grains in your possession. What could you do with the chaff? Well, it could be used to make compost. It could be used as an animal fodder. It could be used to make the green coal, as they call it. Right. Moving to storage. One of the most important areas today is going to be protecting the grains from infestation by pests, especially the rodents. They eat away massive amounts of the grains that we have been able to cultivate, which could be going to feed the human mouths per se. But that is lost because of infestation. Why? Because we are not having proper storage facilities. Now, what would be done to prevent the pests from eating away into the grains? Well, very simple things at home is to keep some neem leaves in the jars, which would be acting as repellents for these pests. The other is going to be to dry these grains. Moisture attracts microbes, it attracts these infesting pests. So once these seeds are dried, it makes it much more easier to have a longer shelf life, if you were to say, for these grains. At home, obviously, we can store them in metal jars, but There are for big fields and stuff, there is a special storing area which is called as the silo, or there are granaries to protect these seeds from the attack of rodents and insects. Well, a passing comment on what is animal husbandry. As we talked about, that agriculture is going to be cultivation of plants as well as rearing of animals for either providing food or for other economic gains, that is byproducts like wool, meat, etc. So animals that are reared in the farm, in the shelter, on a large scale are called as, the process is called as animal husbandry. This brings us to the end of the chapter. See you in chapter 2. Thank you.